Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Lucas Dahl, alumnus of the University of Leicester and president of the board of the American Friends of the University of Leicester Foundation. And I would like to extend a very warm welcome to this Festival of Change event tonight, wherever you are in the United States or even in the world. Just a few housekeeping items before we start this evening. Please feel free to keep your videos on for the duration of today's event, but please keep your microphones on mute so that we can all hear the speakers. To see the speakers more clearly, you can turn on speaker mode at the top of your screen if you wish. This event is being recorded so we can share it afterwards with you and will then be available on the website. First off, I would like to welcome the President and Vice Chancellor of the University of Leicester, Professor Nishan Kanagaraja, the head of the Leicester Institute of Advanced Studies, Professor Lisa Smith, my fellow board members, and of course, all of you, the attendees tonight. Tonight, we'll have the honor to learn about the university, particularly in this very trying time, its current pandemic response research. We'll see a short video from our 2019, in better times, Lifetime Achievement Award winner, the one and only Andy Byford, for many of us here in New York, particularly very well known. And you will learn how you can join the American Friends of the University of Leicester in making a difference as a citizen of change. If you do have any questions for the Vice Chancellor, we'll encourage you to post them in the chat and we will answer them during our Q&A session at the end of his talk. If you do have any questions for the board or Professor Lisa Smith, we would like you to post them in the chat after the Vice Chancellor's Q&A, and we will answer them during the second Q&A at the end of the talks. As said, it's my great pleasure to welcome you all to this launch event of the American Friends of the University of Leicester. This has been an event a long time in the making, not only just for the pandemic. If I may, a few words about myself. In my day job, I'm the managing attorney of Stahl Law. It's a law firm with offices here in the United States, in California and New York. My firm focuses on the representation of European companies doing business in the United States. I graduated from Leicester with a Master of Laws, ALM in European Management and Employment Law in 1997. In 2014, I was asked to join the Standing Committee of the Alumni Association that represents all of Leicester's over 100,000 alumni worldwide, and I have served on it since. Its president, Martin Cullen, is also today with us here, and he has sent his well wishes for our event today. And I like to thank him, my fellow board members at Leicester, but also in particular, Steve O'Connor, who is here with us, and more recently, Carrie Law, who has joined us as well, for their support over the years to help this project to come to fruition. As part of the alumni team at the university, I would like to thank Rosemary Faint, Paul Robbins, Rachel Selfridge, and Laura Woodhouse for their year-long support at Leicester. Of course, I wish you could all be here in person as we planned originally for our May event in New York, but for all the reasons we know, that hasn't been possible. But it's at the Alumni Association where we realized a few years ago that Leicester has several thousand graduates from or living in the United States. Many of them great leaders in their profession, amazing role models, and what we believe an enormous resource for each other and the University of Leicester at large. There are notable examples by other universities in the UK and here in the US, and we like to believe that Leicester belongs into its top ranks. But we also believe in the power of networks and concrete action to help better people's lives. In line with the university's now 100-year-old motto, Ut vitam habeant, so that they may have life. So for many of us as alumni or former exchange students at the University of Leicester, Leicester gave us a foundation to succeed in life here in the United States. So today we can launch a foundation here in the United States that can help future graduates of the University of Leicester to succeed and get to wherever they want to go, creating citizens of change. This is also why we decided to start this launch also as part of the university's Festival of Change. Tonight is the third of many events taking place as part of the Festival of Change series of events, which will run until April 2021, when the university's centenary celebrations begins. This is a great opportunity for graduates like yourself to engage with the university no matter where you are in the world. I hope you enjoy this event. We will hear from Professor Nishan in a few moments, followed by a Q&A. But first, it gives me great pleasure to introduce you to the American Friends board members, starting with my friend Pamela Matera. Pamela, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Lucas, and good evening, everyone. I'm Pamela Matera, and I earned my master's degree in museum studies at Leicester in 2007, and I lived in Opal Court while I was studying there. I'm currently the director of membership at the Brooklyn Museum here in New York, and I'm the treasurer of the board, and I'm really excited to help launch the Friends Group. I've had the privilege of getting to know Leicester alumni in New York for the last 14 years, and I really want to help facilitate those opportunities for all alumni across the country. So with that, I will turn it over to Marty.
Hi, I'm Marty Lampner. I graduated with an MBA in 2003. In my years there, I stayed over in Nixon Court. During the summer sessions, I was one of the early distance learners. Spent a fair amount of time in Ken Edwards during the summers. I think part of the reason I wanted to get engaged was that the university did quite a bit for me. I think it is part of the reason I became the president of Chimes, which is a multinational NGO. And I wanted to be able to give back, to give others that opportunity. Octavia, the floor is yours.
Oh, thank you, Marty, and thank you, Lucas. My name's Octavia Gorodima. I have a joint honours degree from the University of Leicester. I studied politics and economic and social history, and I lived in the Elms Road residences during my time there. I'm now a career coach and writer, and I joined the American Friends Board because I moved to the United States 15 years ago. I'm now a US citizen and I live in Los Angeles, and I'm incredibly proud to lend my support to the work at the university. My time in Leicester was so important and so pivotal to me. So it's an honor. And next up is Debbie.
Hello, everyone. I'm Debbie. Welcome to our global alumni community. I graduated with an MBA degree from the University of Leicester. Currently on the board with the American Friends of the University of Leicester. And we are excited about this launch, and we look forward to everybody's help and support.
I think that's me next. I'm Doug Urquhart. Hello, everybody. I think I'm the oldest, or perhaps most experienced board member, just seeing that I graduated reading law in 1985, which seems like a very long time ago. It was a very long time ago. Still, I have very fond memories. I lived in Stamford Hall in the Grand Shirley House for my first year before I went out into the city. I don't remember, I was asked to remember what clubs I was a member of, and I really don't remember any clubs, but I do remember seeing some amazing bands, now legendary bands in the student union. So anyway, my career, I thought I was going to become a solicitor in the UK, and took a year out and ended up taking the bar in the US and becoming a partner in a US law firm. That was in 1991, I think, is when I moved here full time. So I've been here a long time, and I've seen, my own children now in college. I've seen how important alumni networks are and networking is, and so I was happy to give back and to thank the university for everything they did for me. They've been a great help to me over the years, and I think this is going to be a great success. So thank you for inviting me to the board.
Thank you very much, Doug. And we have another board member who, unfortunately, Catherine couldn't join us tonight, but we have another board member who is Catherine Vigdor, who is a history and politics BA, 1993, and also joins the ranks of lawyers here that are very well represented in this group. So do please keep sending in your questions for the Vice Chancellor. But for now, without further ado, it gives me great pleasure to introduce to you University of Leicester President and Vice Chancellor, Professor Nishan Kanagaraja.
Thank you, Lucas. And it's a pleasure to be here with you this afternoon for some of you, evening for some of the others. And it's a shame that I can't be with you in person to see you physically. Nevertheless, I'm delighted to be with you this evening for me in the UK. And I can already see that you are chatting away, making connections, which is one of the nice features of these events. So I just want to say a few words. I took up the role 1 year ago this month, 4th of November I started, and what a year it has been. It has been unprecedented. But before I carry on, I just want to take a moment to say my heart goes out to all those who may have suffered a loss during this global pandemic. It has been a difficult time for many of us, but it also highlighted the importance of us supporting one another and looking after each other. Anyway, I want to say a very special welcome to you all for what is our first virtual event of the US alumni. And as Lucas said, indeed the inaugural event of the American Friends Foundation. While representatives of the university have been from coast to coast over the years, the alumni events have taken place in New York City, and the pandemic has made it necessary for us to find new and creative ways of staying connected. I want to start by talking to you about my priorities for Leicester. And as we approach our centenary next year, how my vision fits in with the founding ethos of this great university. As I look to the future, I believe it is important to draw from the strengths of our heritage. I want Leicester to become a leader in transformational higher education, addressing access, transition, and support challenges, and in particular, the awarding gaps and outcome differences affecting students from all different backgrounds. My priorities in education are supporting a curriculum suited to the needs of the next generation for a diverse and exciting student body. It is clear, as we move into next century, our student makeup will be diverse in ambition and geographical reach. We must ensure our curriculum and student support create a truly inclusive environment for every student to flourish and achieve their full potential. That is, in fact, why we were founded. A university, like your great country, founded by the people, for the people. Founded to create citizens of change, to empower people through education to build a better world, to use the transformative power of higher education to discover new possibilities, to hope and to dream. And that is as true now as it has ever been. In 100 years, we have grown to become a leading and world-renowned university, a community of 18,000 students, 4,000 staff, and nearly 200,000 alumni in 191 countries and territories. We retained our position as one of the top 25 UK universities, and we are ranked among the top 200 in the world, with a world-leading reputation for research and discovery. We are renowned for the discovery of the revolutionary crime and paternity testing technique known as the genetic fingerprinting. We achieved global recognition for discovery of King Richard III, or the king under the car park. And we have been at the forefront of space science for over 60 years, with many of the missions we have been involved in linked to your great nation. We currently have more than 250 US students studying with the university, and there is a long history of exchange programs stretching over 3 decades. Approximately 30 to 40 students study in the US each year, and we host an equal number of incoming students each year from the US. We also have exchange agreements with approximately 50 universities across 21 states, a number of which are ranked in the top 100. We have run American Studies degrees at Leicester for more than 20 years that regularly rank near the top UK national league tables and consistently achieve the best national student survey scores in the university. In that time, hundreds of our students have attended more than 20 US universities all across the country, enjoying a year-abroad experience in order to further their academic interests. We run an annual American Studies lecture, often held with the support from the US Embassy in London, and host regular events for students and academics on US culture, politics, and society, including a very successful recent series of debates on the presidential election. So we have an important footprint in the US, and many of our US alum are very committed to the alma mater. The establishment of the American Friends Foundation signals our continuing commitment to you and provides a platform for engagement and involvement for all of our US alum. It opens up possibilities for discussion on partnerships, provision of ambassadors and volunteers to support the university and to engage with us. It also provides a vehicle for tax-effective giving. I hope you wouldn't mind me highlighting that. I hope the foundation provides a platform for you to not only connect with your university, but to also help shape its future. Ours is a university founded through philanthropy in order to give the gift of learning to future generations. Your gifts fund the continued development of the university, the well-being of our students, the advancement of world-changing research, and the provision of inspirational learning and teaching. As Lucas mentioned, during the global pandemic, our alumni have played a key part in responding to COVID, continuing to support the City of Leicester and the university, volunteering to mentor final year students, creating congratulatory messages for the class of 2020, and making and donating face masks. These are just some of the practical ways our alumni have risen to the challenge. A total of £200,000 of alumni donations has been used to fund the Emergency Hardship Fund, with an additional £100,000 to be added. We're also launching a special COVID-19 research fund appeal. Donations to this appeal will enable Leicester researchers to be at the forefront of global endeavors to inform our route out of the pandemic. This research is critical, not just to help us through the COVID-19, but to ensure we are better prepared to navigate through future pandemics. As one of the UK's most socially inclusive universities, committed to equal access for everyone, philanthropy plays a vital role in creating opportunities, enriching lives, and transforming the learning environment. And I'm a living example of what philanthropy has done to me. Alumni also play a vital role as our ambassadors. Your successes, achievements, speaks volumes for the kind of institution we are. I see our relationship with you as partnership, and I'm keen to explore ways to work together and strengthen this university. As the world has embraced virtual technology, we too are moving our alumni engagement activities online. From academic lectures and talks to quizzes and virtual tours, there is something for everyone, no matter where you are in the world. Along with our events, our communications will shift to predominantly e-communications. So please ensure you sign up for our emails so you can stay up to date with all the university news, as well as hearing about all the events available. I and the alumni engagement team value your involvement as alumni, as partners in the way we shape our future, and as critical friends to this university. I want to end by illustrating how, at Leicester, we provide more than an education. Our US students also find love at Leicester. Two of our incoming US students, one from Illinois and one from Colorado, met at Leicester in 2008, returned to get married here in 2015, and have since 2 children. The Leicester family keeps growing. On that happy note, I shall stop now and take your questions. Over to you, Lucas.
Thank you very much for joining us, Nishan, and for delivering this really insightful address and also interesting stories. We've been receiving lots of questions from graduates, so we'll spend the next few minutes going through as many as we can. Marty Lampner, the board secretary, will be fielding the questions. So over to you, Marty.
Thank you, Lucas. Our first question comes from Kim Holloway, and the question is, are there opportunities for research collaborations with Leicester researchers and those of us who work in academic institutions in the US?
Absolutely, Marty. I'm very determined that we are a world-leading research-intensive university. And the hallmark of a world-leading research-intensive university for me is threefold. One is we are addressing global challenges to solve real problems that affects us globally. So our research programs have to be aligned with that. And the second, our makeup of staff and students is as a global outlook. And three, we have partnerships. By working together, we can solve real problems, because no one person or one institution or one country can solve some of our big challenges in climate change or health. These are big societal challenges. Only by pooling the resources together, we can have the impact. And the classic example, you're already seeing what's happening in COVID-19 vaccine trials. This is our global efforts. And I want Leicester to be a strong partner in future opportunities like that. And at the moment, we are already doing in COVID-19. So for example, the long-term effect of COVID and how do we address them? And these are global challenges. And I think if we can partner with other universities in the UK, I'll be delighted. Because for me, our reputation is determined by the partnerships we have.
Our next question, how has the university's student recruitment, especially in the US, been affected by COVID-19?
Now, overall, student recruitment hasn't been severely impacted. We have had, despite the challenges of COVID-19, we have done really well. And I think our international student numbers are looking very strong. Our students coming in from Canada for most of our law programs, we haven't seen a drop in the number of registrations. Obviously, because of COVID, some of them are still in Canada, engaging in our programs online. Some of our programs, we have delayed the start to January. And as Pamela said, we have a very strong engagement on museum studies, and we have again seen a good take up in our museum studies program. So we have not seen a major impact in North America. We are seeing increase in demand from India, and we are also seeing the interest staying steady in China. But it is so unpredictable. We cannot take our eye off the ball, and the future looks very uncertain, and we just have to be relentless in kind of promoting our messages and forming partnerships and attracting these students to come to Leicester.
What measures have the university put in place to stop the spread of COVID-19 among students and the local community and support the international students during the pandemic?
Quite a lot. I'm quite proud, actually, what we have done in Leicester. And I think as a result, I got a lot of media appearances, which is not what I signed up to when I took on as the Vice Chancellor, because there are some innovative things we have done in Leicester that's caught the national attention. So I can give you some examples of what we have done. So for example, as you know, the younger generation, they're asymptomatic, but they can be spread the infection. So we were one of the first universities to invest our own money to have our own screening program for our students. And I did the test on the second day because I wanted to see, and it's fantastic. It only took me 10 minutes to have, and the next day I got on my mobile phone the result. And this has been very supportive. Our students are finding that reassuring. It has been reassuring for our staff. We have so far tested about 2,500 students who are asymptomatic. So they feel reassured. And as I said, since we started, a number of other universities have taken a similar approach. And now the government, if you've been following events in the UK, the government is keen that we provide that testing for students to go back home for Christmas. And I guess in the US for Thanksgiving, something similar might be happening. And what we have found is because we have done the screening already, it has been seamless for us to offer this screening, the testing for our students to go back home, particularly those with vulnerable families. And the other point I would make is that for students who are infected, they have to self-isolate for 14 days. And in Leicester, we provide food and all the support for them. And I have had some fantastic emails from parents saying, you are taking care of our children really well. That has been really reassuring to hear from parents that we are, it's not cheap, but I'm really proud the way our students are well supported. And the third thing I would say is that our international students, when the international students were arriving, they had to quarantine for 14 days because that was part of the government guidance. So again, we provided them accommodation and all the support for free for the 14 days. So I'm quite proud of what we have done. And at the moment, all the feedback I'm getting is very positive. There are one or two isolated cases. I'm sure we may have not done as well as we would like, but I would say 90–95%, it has gone really, really well.
Are there any plans to visit the US once the pandemic is over?
You mean personally?
I think that was the questioner's intent. Yes.
Yes.
For the US.
I was supposed to be there. Interestingly, normally vice chancellors are criticized for being on the plane a lot, but I've been in the Leicester as a vice chancellor for a year, and I've not been on the plane once. So I look forward to coming and seeing you all in person. I've been to States a lot. I worked with a number of universities in my time in California, in New York, in Illinois. So I have a lot of connections there, and I'm very fond of my trips to America. So I'd love to come and see you all in person and talk in more detail about my plans and also hear your plans for Leicester.
Beyond fundraising, are there more ways through the foundation or directly with the university we can support virtual students, for example, through mentoring, internships, or career coaching?
Absolutely. And I want our alumni to, one message that I want to share with you, the alumni engagement for me is not just about fundraising, although important that is. For me, it's more than that. I want you to be our ambassadors. Make connections where we don't have connections right now. Open up doors that Leicester's, both staff, including myself, staff and students who don't have opportunities to walk in through those doors right now. If you can open those doors, that'll be a tremendous service you will be making for the students and staff at Leicester. And the second point you make, I'm an engineer. And when I was Dean of Engineering, I'm quite proud of one of the things that I did as engineer. Every undergraduate student in my faculty had an industrial mentor, and most of them were alumni. So they would meet with the student twice a year to give them just general advice. And that was invaluable for the student, to have an external feedback from somebody not within the university. So if you can provide mentoring, internship opportunities, and just generally, if we have events, just attend, just seeing people just gives us confidence that Leicester is held in high regard. So I would say the support that I'm expecting from my alumni is multifaceted. It's not just one thing.
Thank you very much, Vice Chancellor. And that will be our last question. Over to you, Lucas.
So thank you, Misha, for this great Q&A session. Unfortunately, this is all the time we have for questions. So, but thank you for all who engaged with this first question and answer session. And again, special thank you for you, Nisha, to taking this time to join us tonight, especially at this late hour. It is already in the UK. But of course, this is giving us great insight from you firsthand about how you want to see Leicester go, and also, of course, how we can help as a foundation. So now we will move on to our next speaker, Professor Lisa Smith, who will talk about the Leicester Institute for Advanced Studies and the university's response to the pandemic. Over to you, Lisa.
Thank you very much, Lucas. I am going to attempt to share my screen. So let's see how this goes. Hopefully in a moment you'll be able to see it. Before I get started, I feel like I should declare that I'm also a Leicester alumni. So I moved to Leicester in 2006 from Toronto to do a PhD in forensic psychology, and I've been here ever since. So yeah, now I'm a professor of criminology in our School of Criminology, and also the director of the Leicester Institute for Advanced Studies. So thanks so much for inviting me to come along to this really exciting virtual event and to tell you a little bit about what we do in the Institute, and in particular how the Institute has been contributing to the university's research response to the COVID-19 pandemic. On the bottom of this slide, if you're on Twitter, you're welcome to follow the Institute. Our Twitter handle's there at the bottom of the screen. Perhaps I can pop it in the chat as well. We're going to be launching a Christmas campaign, which we do every year on Twitter, just to celebrate some of the exciting work that's going on. And I've only got 10 minutes to talk to you this evening, so I'm going to just be highlighting a few bits, but if you follow that campaign, you'll get a lot more information about what we've been up to, including the pandemic's work. So I'm just going to give you a really brief overview of what the Institute is. So I'm going to refer to us as LIAS from now on, because the Leicester Institute for Advanced Studies is a bit of a mouthful. We're the newest institute to be established at the university. We started officially in 2017, and we're very similar to other institutes of advanced studies at research-intensive universities around the world. What we have in common with these other institutes is that our focus is to support and promote and celebrate interdisciplinary research. So this is research where people from different disciplinary backgrounds are coming together to tackle, really complex global challenges and working together to find solutions to those issues and have real impact. And we do this in a number of different ways. We have things like a visiting fellowship scheme. So again, this might be something that alumni group would like to get involved in, where scholars from around the world spend time in Leicester at the Institute working with colleagues across disciplines. So we've had 24 visiting fellows since 2017 so far from 18 different countries. So that's quite an active program. Not so much in 2020 because of travel restrictions, but we're about to launch a virtual fellowship scheme. So hopefully that will help people still sort of visit us virtually and engage with our researchers. We also pump prime a lot of research, and we're going to talk about this in the context of the pandemic in a second. But this is where we kind of provide short-term funding to groups across all 3 colleges that want to come together around a really exciting, perhaps really risky research venture. And that funding helps to get them started with the aim for them to be able to land some external funding once they're established and once they've got their program of research underway. So we do that across a few different funding schemes. We hold lots of research events, and we offer lots of grant development support to these teams, because it's really difficult actually for colleagues from different disciplinary backgrounds sometimes to come together and work effectively. So we support them in that across the board. So in terms of the COVID-19 pandemic and pandemic research more generally, one of the things we did early on in the pandemic is we launched a COVID-19 rapid response scheme of pump priming funding for groups. So this is where we had an open call for groups across the whole university to come together and work together on COVID-19 related research. So I've just got a couple of examples of the types of work we saw come out of that program. For example, one was an interaction between our Leicester Microbial and Infectious Disease Network, the chemistry department, and physics, working together on interactions between air pollution and COVID-19 and respiratory bacterial pathogens. That was quite an interesting and very timely bit of work that those came together to do. We also had some colleagues from mathematics and informatics and the business school and the law school, and they were working together on looking at the kind of ethics and privacy issues behind COVID-19 contact tracing apps, which was obviously quite a popular subject in the media and continues to be a bit controversial. One final example, we had colleagues from geography and criminology and the arts and law working on the impact of the pandemic on different genders and different sexualities, and how lockdowns in particular were really impacting minority sexuality groups. So some really interesting stuff that weren't really the bog standard research questions that a lot of research groups were working on came out of that COVID-19 rapid response call. So moving on from that was quite early days in the pandemic. We launched that call around April, May time. And moving on from that, what we want to do in the Institute with our current pandemic research themed call is to really ask even bigger questions, not just about COVID-19, but about pandemics in general, because of course, this isn't the first pandemic that's had global impact, and it won't be the last, unfortunately. So there's a lot of really big questions that we can be asking in research terms to help us better prepare and for future pandemics, and as well as recover from our current situation. So what we've done is we convened researchers from across the university to try and flesh out what a really Leicester flavored pandemic research themed funding call might look like. What emerged from that is just kind of summarized on the screen here. So basically 3 really big areas of research came out in our research strengths at Leicester. One was questions around the environment. So how does the environment impact on pandemics, but also how does a pandemic impact on our environment and on ecosystems? So that was one strand. Second strand was around inequalities. So what we've known right from the start of this pandemic is that it affects different people in different ways. And so there's all kinds of interesting questions about who is affected, maybe more so than other groups during the pandemic, understanding what inequalities exist, but also in the longer term, what the impact of the pandemic might have on inequality. And then the final theme that emerged was risk in communications. So again, this idea of health communications, for instance, public health messaging. There's lots of interactions between that strand and the inequality strand. So lots of interplay between those three green vertical bars. And then we also identified 4 kind of cross-cutting issues that we wanted our researchers who were going to apply to this funding call to be using to answer these questions. So things like usable past and foresight, so getting historians involved, so that we're not just focusing on pandemics in the context of COVID-19, but we're looking back at what we can learn from previous pandemics, and then foresight, being able to look ahead at pandemics of the future and try and prepare for them better, basically. I'm just going to pick up another one. Mobilities is a really important cross-cutting issue. People are more mobile globally than they ever have been before. And of course, the more people move around, the more complex the ecosystem around pandemics becomes. So looking at the movement of people becomes a really important cross-cutting issue. So we were kind of asking when we launched this call for people to address research that fits broadly across one of those 3 overarching themes and uses some of these cross-cutting issues to investigate those themes. And then the last thing to say is that we kind of had 3 main values that underpin this pandemics work that we're doing across the university. So one is interdisciplinarity. We want disciplines working together so that they can ask really big, really complex problems and work together to find the solutions. Inclusivity as well. So we want to involve people from all career stages, from the most senior of professors all the way down to the early career researchers who are just starting out their research careers. We want them all coming together in these projects and involving students wherever possible as well, whether that be PhD students all the way to undergraduate students involved in projects. And then integrity. So what we want to fund in this program is, of course, robust research that's going to have a real measurable positive impact in the world. So that call went out in September. We're meeting actually tomorrow, I believe, to have the panel to consider some of the applications that came in across that theme. So I can't really report to you what exactly the projects are going to be yet, because we haven't met to consider the applications. But I can tell you, having read them, that we had some really interesting work across all 3 colleges submitted, and there's some really potentially exciting research coming from this call. Again, if you want to follow that Christmas campaign that I mentioned on the first slide, we'll definitely be announcing some of the funded projects under that campaign. So I think the last thing I want to say before I hand over for some questions is just to kind of highlight the importance of this kind of research to addressing the broader, really complex challenges that are posed by pandemics generally, so not just the COVID-19 pandemic. And the Institute for Advanced Studies is important in this process because we provide a really exciting environment where our researchers at Leicester and beyond can tackle these big questions and work really effectively across disciplinary boundaries. And it kind of moves the research on beyond just the medical research that, of course, is really important and that Leicester is leading on in many ways. But a lot of that research is very focused on the current pandemic, and this allows us to explore the much more longer term impacts of pandemics in general across all aspects of society. And this kind of research is really central to securing sustainable research funding for the institution, and it directly informs Leicester's world rankings as a research-intensive university. So it's really important to our overall mission at the University of Leicester. So I hope that you found the work I've told you about today interesting, and you realize how important it is at looking at how we emerge from a pandemic and rebuild and reconnect as a society, and also how we can better prepare for and navigate future pandemics. So the LIAS funding call that we had open, that just we're considering at the panel tomorrow, is a really central part of the university's COVID response fund, and it will enable us to look at pandemics in a much more holistic way. Back over to you, Lucas.
Thank you very much for joining us, Lisa, and delivering this really interesting presentation. And I loved how you coined that phrase, Leicester flavored research team, because it really is true Leicester research, and you showed that very clearly. In its inclusive approach and interdisciplinary approach is different. And, you know, I think even more so very valuable to support. Supporting areas such as that COVID-19 response fund you were talking about through philanthropic donations is one of the many ways actually you can get involved with the foundation. So, but of course, as Nisha said before, also you can also become ambassadors for the foundation, promoting the American Friends to fellow graduates and share business networks and links. And so, of course, I hope you will join us in supporting the foundation. We've set up a website. It's www.AFUoL.org, so for American Friends of University of Leicester. And it's a landing page for now for donations. You will find more information coming up actually there, because we'll also have opportunities available for you to support the university in other ways. We're currently looking for graduates to complete profiles, which might encourage some prospective students who are at this point still undecided, how could they, about whether to go to University of Leicester, to choose Leicester. And we're also looking for centenary alumni planning representatives to help shape plans for the university's centenary celebration that start next year, hopefully already under better conditions. So if you are interested in these opportunities, please let us know in the event evaluation form, which will be posted here in the chat at the end of today's event. Before we get to questions, I'm also delighted to say that even though he could not be here in person, our very own Andy Byford, and I said it in the beginning, for us New Yorkers, he is like a hero. He's been the previous president of the Metropolitan Transport Authority here in New York and changed our subways for better. He completed a French and German BA in 1989, and he was our 2019 Alumni Lifetime Achievement Award winner. So he was kind enough to send us a video to say hello, and he was supposed to be at the original foundation launch in New York City in May when he was still based in New York earlier this year. Now he's been hired back to London, where he is actually holding that very job as well. And he still has fond memories of his time in NYC, and he wanted to be part of this launch event. So we will show a video saying hello by Andy.
Hi everyone, my name's Andy Byford and I'm a very proud graduate of the University of Leicester. So I was honoured to be asked by the university to just say a few words to our friends across the pond, the Friends of Leicester University. So my history with Leicester goes back to 1985. I was a joint honours French and German student. I lived in halls in Obi for my first year in Stamford, and then went into self-catering halls in Clare and had a great time. I've met loads of friends that I still have to this day, and we had a real good time, both in the university itself, going to concerts, hanging out in the Union, but also going to enjoy what the city had to offer, going to football, going to have curries and going out and enjoying life and being young and carefree. It seems like a long time ago now, but I still clearly remember it. So I then had to decide what I wanted to do in my career, and rather unusually for a languages graduate, I chose to go into transport, and I joined London Underground in 1989. And I've never really looked back since. I've had a 31-year career now in transit that's literally taken me all over the world, 3 continents in fact. So I worked my way up from a station foreman at the bottom, right up to a position of general manager on the tube. I spent a bit of time on the mainline railways, and then went international. My wife and I decamped off to Australia. We had a great 3 years where I worked for Sydney Rail Corp, running the customer service side of things, before we then went to Canada and spent 6 wonderful years. I was the CEO of the TTC. My wife really enjoyed being back in Canada. She is Canadian. And then New York came calling, and I was lucky enough and honoured to be the president of New York City Transit, the iconic New York subway and bus system and paratrans, and a fabulous 2 years there, living in New York and really enjoying the American lifestyle and putting together a plan that I know will stand the test of time, which is really a vision for modernising New York's transit system. While I was there, I remember clearly the former vice president of the university, the vice chancellor, coming to see Leicester graduates, and he took us out for a fabulous dinner in Soho, and we reminisced about our time at university. We got to meet each other, all these people living across New York City, and we also got to catch up on the various developments at the university. I was also honoured in my time in New York to be given a Lifetime Achievement Award by the university, something I'll treasure for the rest of my life. So where next, really? Well, I've come back to the UK and I'm now the Commissioner of Transport for London, one of the world's most successful and one of the largest integrated transit networks in the world. We don't just run transit, we run the roads, we run the taxi licensing scheme, we've got river bus services, we've got cable car, overground services, in other words, mainline as well as subway. So it's a huge job, obviously trying to sort out COVID and get a new subway extension open. And where for Leicester? Well, I watch it with interest. I'm still very much in contact with the university. It's great to see just next year will be the 100th anniversary of our venerable institution. It's great to see all the new buildings going up, the discovery of the remains of Richard III a little while back, the discovery of DNA fingerprinting. Leicester really is one of the top academic institutions in the UK, in fact, in the world. So I'll finish where I started. I'm proud to be a Leicester graduate and I'm proud to be part of a family, including yourselves across the pond. If any Leicester graduates from the US ever happen to be in London, once we get this pandemic out the way, give me a call. I'll be happy to meet up with you. Take care.
Thank you, Andy, and what a wonderful video for him. So good for him to send it in. I mean, I think we can be really, really proud to have such fantastic and amazing and accomplished alumni like Andy Bafford. We've been receiving lots of questions from alumni for Professor Lisa Smith in the meantime, and also for the board. So we'll spend the next few minutes going through as many as we can. Marty Lampner, the board secretary, will again be fielding the questions. So over to you, Marty.
This first question is for Lisa. What are the main challenges in interdisciplinary research projects like the ones you've mentioned? And how does the Institute help researchers overcome these?
Yeah, that's a good question. And we get asked that quite a lot, actually. So I think that one of the main challenges to bringing disciplines together, and we in the Institute, we quite often talk about the difference between near neighbor disciplines. So disciplines that might perhaps both be in the social sciences. And so they use a lot of similar methodology and a lot of similar language. And we kind of contrast that to what we call distant cousin disciplines. So these could be somebody from the arts working with someone in physics, and they use completely different approaches to research. They define things differently. So communication is actually one of the really big challenges when you bring those really disparate disciplines together. So we've got lots of different ways in the Institute. We do lots of facilitated workshops and sessions and grant writing retreats and things just to help researchers, when they come together for the first time with somebody from a discipline they've never worked with, navigate some of those difficulties with communication and common understanding of different methods and things. So a lot of work goes on behind the scenes getting those collaborations to work before they actually become something really special.
This question's for Lisa as well. It's from Stephen Kabaya. Do you anticipate that the outcome from this research will bring about sustainable solutions to minimize effects of future pandemics?
I hope so, is the honest answer. I think there are some really exciting projects going on that I think could very well have impact down the line. As I mentioned in my presentation, what we do in the Institute is pump priming primarily. So these are projects that are just getting started, usually teams that have never worked together before. So we work with them quite early days to get the thing going so that they can then go on and bid for larger grants and much more ambitious pieces of work. So I think that certainly the teams that get together and really do something special in the beginning, I think definitely have the ability to have real sustainable impact. And I think it's the bringing together of the disciplines that helps to ensure that that will happen. Just a quick example, you could have the world's most amazing scientific innovation, but working with social sciences, for instance, is the way to affect behavior change in the community and get people to adopt that new method. So I think that working together is really the key to some of these projects seeing real impact. So I hope so. And we'll keep you all informed of how they keep going. We'll definitely do some communications around them as they get going.
Also for you, Lisa, are you working in collaboration with Johns Hopkins University?
Yeah, I saw that post actually in the chat. None of the projects that I've seen come through the Institute for Advanced Studies are specifically working with Johns Hopkins, but I don't know if there's anyone else from Leicester on the call who knows of any particular projects that might be around that I'm not aware of. We could certainly look into that though and get back to you.
This is one last question for you, Lisa.
Yep.
How does interdisciplinary research help projects achieve greater real-world impact?
So that's what I was kind of saying in that the second to last question there about the importance of things like behavior change, for instance. So a lot of this talking in the pandemics theme has been around, okay, let's say we come up with a vaccine tomorrow. How do we get people to take it? There was another question in the chat about how do we get people to understand that their right to freedom doesn't necessarily include the right to not wear a mask in a public place, that kind of thing. So I think that a lot of the impact of some of this work is going to really, it needs a shift from an innovation or an invention or a vaccine or whatever to actual implementation in the community. And so I think the interdisciplinary angle there is how you get that to be translated into impact in many of these cases. So yeah.
Many thanks.
That's
Over
right.
to you, Lucas.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Marty, for this very insightful question and answer session. Obviously, we want to have, all engaged as much as possible going forward. And as has been said today, will be many ways, to engage with the university directly and through the American Friends Foundation. The first sort of point of entry will be our website, which will be, as I said, www.AFUoL.org. But we will also ask you, like mentioned before, to fill out an evaluation form at the end of this event that not only will help us to improve events going forward in the future, and we'll send you that evaluation form also via email, but it will give us an idea how you actually would like to engage with the American Friends Foundation going forward. Vice Chancellor Nishan Ganagaraja said it before. Of course, first and foremost, we would like to see you, of course, donate to the different projects, to the different research projects, and to support the university's future graduates, to support the university's research. But there is, of course, much that can be done that goes just beyond giving money. One of it is, being a mentor. And I love the example that Nishan gave before from his time as the dean of the university, dean of engineering, where he made sure that students all had industry experience. And this is going to be, going forward, very, very important, in my opinion, to foster and strengthen the position of the University of Leicester, not only in its ranking tables, but really internationally for its students and graduates. So the American Friends of the University of Leicester is here to facilitate that. You will find us on the internet, but also in the future coming forward with more events of this sort. Please, take the time and fill in the evaluation form that we will now, I think, show at the end of the event. And this is what remains to be said, I'd like to thank very much all the speakers. Like I said, for first and foremost, President VC Nishan Ganagaraja, for your time, and thank you for staying with us here.
We do have one more question that's just come in for you, sir.
Oh, really? Wonderful. Give me.
So I'm going to interrupt if I might.
Well, of course, we improvise.
Okay. This is from Lynn Holly.
Yeah.
Do you have a strategy for fundraising? I've worked in academia in the USA for decades now and would be interested in what is expected from Friends of Leicester.
What's the strategy for fundraising? The strategy is first and foremost to organize the many, actually several thousand alumni that we have here in the United States that have not been pretty much in contact for a long time with the university. As I said in the beginning, we found out at the Alumni Association that represents over 100,000 alumni worldwide, that we have a substantial amount of alumni in the United States. So first step, obviously, before we can actually apply a marketing strategy, let's say, we really have to network and get everyone back into the fold. So that's our first step. And I hope today's and tonight's event was a first step towards that direction. It's actually not easy to find everyone, dispersed across the United States. Of course, social media is a great angle, but it's a sort of a step-by-step approach. that's number one. Number two is next year's centenary. Centenary, of course, is a great opportunity for the university to present itself again. It's 100 years since its foundation. The University of Leicester has a great message. I think we heard about it today. There will be centenary scholarships that will support students, very deserved students, to actually attend university. We will have a republishing of what was the founding document, when you will, of the University of Leicester, its so-called Golden Book. There will be more coming out of there. From my perspective, very personal, very important to me, and I'm very happy that we had Lisa today telling us a lot about the interdisciplinary research at the university, is to support the research strategy of the university, but also research the great PhD products that come out of the university. And I think you will hear more about that as well. Yeah, but first and foremost is, getting connected and getting all the alumni reorganized so we can actually have a good base for getting you to events, getting you to activities, and getting back in touch with the university. That's what we're gonna do next. So we'll keep the meeting live for a few minutes to give everyone the opportunity to fill in the evaluation form. Again, I'd like to thank the speakers, Nishan, Lisa, all the attendees of tonight's event. Thank you very much for attending, and I hope I will see you all very soon. I know I will see my fellow board members very, very soon again. Thanks for joining us tonight. Bye.
Lucas, can I thank you for making all this happen? I really appreciate your efforts and the board's efforts to organize this event. Thank you all very much, and I look forward to continuing the engagement with you.
Thank you, Nishan. Pleasure.